Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another segment. I have Louise Sanders from the Stress Experts joining us once again. How are you, Louise?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to have you back as part of our mini series titled Know Thyself. So if you guys did not catch the main segment, it's titled simply Know Thyself. Go and watch that one first because we introduce the Enneagram, talk about what it is, lay the framework. And now this is the first mini segment where we dive into each of the personality types. Today, we're talking about the number 9 type. So Louise, why don't we just dive right in? What is number 9? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so the name of number 9. So what's cool about the Enneagram is they actually just use numbers, typically because they are like, there's different methodologies to it, there's different thought to it. But the idea of just using numbers is that one is not better than the other. So there's no type that is better than the other. They all have a light side and a dark side. But just for note is they actually have names to them too, so that you can know what they're about. So a type 9 is known as the Peacemaker. So their main motivation, what they're wanting, what's really driving them is peace. Peace, harmony, and just a general getting along. So that's really what's driving the 9. So like I kind of mentioned in the first segment is that, the 8, 9, and 1 are in the same grouping. So a 9 moves with instinct. They make decisions on instinct. And they are an anger type, but they're actually the least in touch with their anger. They're said to have fallen asleep to their anger. So it's not often that a 9 will get angry, and usually when they do get angry, it's explosive.
You just bottle it in and then it comes out one day.
But I guess the other thing about a 9 is that they can become passive aggressive.
Okay.
So because they just fall asleep to their anger, and it's not really anger, they're just like passive about it. So their passive aggressiveness in relationships, for example, can be really annoying for people that are in a relationship with a 9.
We all have our pros and cons, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. And yeah, I realize now as we're sitting here, if you haven't caught the main episode, you really need to catch that one first, because this one won't make sense at all. In the previous episode, we go over the 3 main groups and then the 3 types within the groups as well. So this is really taking and building on and speaking to just each of the different personality types. So catch that, and then this will make sense.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the 9 is under that group. Kate, you said that. So why don't we dig in a little bit deeper? That you're the Peacemaker as 9, you're looking for harmony, I assume, et cetera, et cetera. We chatted about the wing personalities, I guess you call that. I can't remember the word.
So the wings are on either side of every number. Okay. So of each type, they have wings. So the way it works is like whatever dominant type you are. So for me, I'm a type 9. So that's this. I can speak to this in this series pretty easily from personal experience. So there are on each side of every number is what's called your wings. So you can be influenced by your wings.
Okay.
So here I am, a handy dandy little paper. So I'm a type 9. I get influenced by type 8 and type 1. So by a wing, I'm actually a 9 wing 1, meaning I'm more influenced by my 1 by the 1, the archetypal energy of 1 than the 8. Okay. So, meaning like if I were to be influenced by the 8, I would have more assertiveness, and we'll talk about, what the 8's about in a different mini series or a different session. But as a 9 wing 1, I'm more principled of a 1. So, which helps me because part of my, as a 9, I should say, part of the 9's weakness, which we'll get into that a bit more, is is like sloth. So it's a slowness. But where the wing one will help be principled and keep me more, or keep a 9 more structured. So
Okay.
it gives a different flavor. So the wings, a way I've heard it said, and I like it, I use this example quite a bit. It's like your dominant type is just eggs. Like you made eggs.
Okay.
And then your wings are your salt and your pepper.
Oh.
So however much salt or however much pepper is added to your personality type.
Okay.
So some people have kind of like an equal of both, but they're going to have slightly one more than the other. And some it's just like, you can definitely see I can see I'm a 9 wing 1. I have very little influence of the 8.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So why don't we dive into the strengths and weaknesses? Let's start with you can start with whatever one you want, strength or weakness, whatever is more comfortable to.
Yeah. So the strengths of the 9 is because they're motivated by peace, they're going to be quite amicable. Like they're very friendly, they're easygoing. They go along to get along.
Okay.
And so that can be seen as a strength. They typically don't like conflict. So you won't see them. They really are, they're just genuinely nice people. I'm not saying that because I'm a 9 and I'm a genuinely nice person, but 9s in particular, they just get along with like everyone.
Yeah.
So these are strengths, but what's interesting, and it's like with every type, it's almost like their strengths become their weakness.
I was going to say, we probably have to have that conversation together. It's strength and weakness, because wouldn't it be like a sliding scale for everything? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's a sliding scale, because you can just imagine if you're motivated by peace, if that goes too much, you can get into sloth where you don't want to change things. You don't want to take action. You just want your comfort. And so a 9 can be just stay in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And they'll find ways to just to comfort themselves and to stay comfortable. Just stay in this little bubble of peace. So don't interrupt me. Don't I'm not going to say my opinion. I'm not going to say how I feel. I'm not going to say, because I don't want to impact others. Because if I impact others, it might cause a conflict. So it can be, the weakness of a 9 is, in a relationship, for example, it's like, well, what do you want? This is like someone may ask a 9, what do you want? Like, I don't know. Because a 9 actually is asleep to themselves.
Okay.
They disappear from themselves. And actually what can happen is a 9 will merge with another. Okay. So that they lose themselves. And I said in our opening segment that my struggle with my sister getting married that I'm close to, and I kind of like fell apart, is because I had so merged with her. I had lost myself and I didn't know. I had no idea, but I had merged with her so that like I've done everything with her. I didn't know. I wasn't paying attention. I had no idea. So that when she was getting married, I had to go on my own. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I like. It was because I merged so much. I became one and I didn't know. So as a 9, that's very harmonious because her wants, her needs were, I could meet them. There was no problem. So the issue with a 9, it can be that they have a hard time starting sentences with I. I want, I need, I feel, I like, I don't like. It's as a one tip I give people that are 9s that are wanting to, grow a bit, is just start sentences with I prefer. Just a preference. You may not be able to know what you want. And that was kind of a game changer for me when I heard that for myself, is what is it that you prefer? If you could have it any way, what do you prefer? So it can be very difficult for a 9 to know what they want. And so that can be good and a strength because they're just good with whatever. But it can be really difficult when either they, live alone or they want to start their own business or they want it. It's like, what do you want? Or in a relationship.
Yeah. It's so interesting because we've in the coaching session that Louise and I did, she coached me on the Enneagram, and we talked about that in the previous episode. It was interesting because when I did the session with her, we go through the questions, but the back and forth dialogue was so important. And one of the things you said in that session was exactly what you just touched on. I'm an 8. We'll talk about the 8s later. And I think we're fairly different from the 9s, but yet we have a same undercurrent, if we want to call it that. To me, that was something I noticed in life, is the people that talk about we. When I say something, it's I want, I will. And it's very like possessive and very, I would assume, dominant and et cetera, et cetera. And then I've had a few people in my life, they say we, and I'm like, who's we? And it was just, that is where some of this work was game changing. I'm like, why are they saying we? It's I, like,
Well,
and
you
this,
bring up this is great. Like I have a total example of this, and this
okay.
is when I was learning about neurolinguistic programming, or NLP. In the training, they got you to do something, and then they're like, well, what was your experience? And I remember saying my experience, but I didn't say I said we. And I would always say we, and I never caught it. And my teacher's like, you mean you, like I. And I'm like, huh? Like,
Yeah,
no. I guess so.
I know.
I don't know. And so that was another, like, I learned the NLP before the Enneagram, but it really struck me. She was an interesting teacher. It was
She an 8?
it was too aggressive for me, so it really stuck with me.
Yes.
That I'm
Yes.
oh, apparently I did that wrong. Like, you're supposed to be a nice person. I'm a nice person. Everyone's supposed to be a nice person.
See, and this is the magic in this work and why I do it. Actually, it was funny. I've had a few people do the we thing to me, and one of them was my husband. He said we. I looked at him, I'm like, who are you talking about? You? I'm like, who's the we? You're one person. And that's where I started to catch on. I'm like, that's different. And I could see where a we person, it's just a nicer way of talking about things, right? It's, I would imagine, less aggressive.
That's right.
We, that's great.
Right. And so it's not something that a 9 does consciously. It's just, it lightens the blow. So 9s are very good at, another strength of theirs is mediating. So seeing different points of view. Yeah. They're so good at seeing different points of view that they don't even know theirs. So they might look like a fence sitter. It's like, well, just pick a side. It's like, I can't pick a side. I see validity in all of it. There was an example of this. I remember when I was getting coached, my coach told me, he's like, a 9 can go to a prison and talk to all the inmates and would release all of them because their story makes sense.
That's great. Yeah.
Because all the pieces fit, the story makes sense. They see big picture.
Okay.
Even though they care about the details, but their archetype is that they see big picture.
Yeah. And that is, again, why I'm doing this session, because it's so important to know these details about ourselves and others and respect it, and also realize that our differences make up a lovely fabric of society. We don't want all 8s. We don't want all 9s. We have to have everybody, because we all have our gifts and our talents and our ways of seeing things and our actions and our inactions, right? And this is the lovely part, because when we're aware, we can work to that and strengthen it and respect others, right? And really, if you were a business person or working with friends or family, this is where you can start to respect other people, but build a strong team too.
Absolutely.
A lot of the mistakes, and I've done it on a small scale until I caught what I was doing, is hiring all the same type. Hiring all your own same type. And that's not necessarily what you want to do as a business owner, depending on your job. If you want sales, you'll want this type of person generally. If you want HR or like management, you might want some of these people. And this is why it's so important, right? To
Yes.
know.
And I mean, if you look at like, just let's say like planning a party, for example, you want the detail organized. That might be a 1. You know, you want the relationship of, you know, to invite people. Well, who's going to write the invitation? And you need someone to that's good at relationship. You know, that might be a 2, because a 2 is all about like making everyone feel good. So it's, you want, like, we all bring gifts.
Yeah.
And even a 9, and that's something that a 9, I know I had that problem too when I got my Enneagram coaching, is like, I don't have gifts. So that's something a 9 does too, is they self-depreciate because they don't matter. That's kind of the way they view life, is they don't matter. It's just one of, you know, if they don't matter, if they can go into the wall, just blend into the wall, everyone else will be harmonious. Because if I don't make an impact, then I won't cause disturbances, then everyone can be peaceful. So they blend into a wall and it's like they don't matter. So that's the way they see themselves. And so it's like, well, I don't bring anything to the table. Like, I don't have gifts. And what's another way I've heard it described is all the Enneagram types are like bricks. Okay. And the 9 is the mortar that holds it.
Oh, lovely.
So it's the harmony, the mediator, the peacemaker.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And as I'm aware of this work and start to learn, I look at other personality types and admire traits from them, right? Because it's not that we don't have it. I have that. We each have everything, I'd imagine, in us.
Absolutely.
But to smaller and greater scale. And there's a lot of traits to you, Louise, and this might make you shy, but there's a lot of your traits that I really admire. And you bring so much to the world, right? And we don't realize our gifts. And that, to me, is why I talk about this work, for self-awareness and appreciating others, right? Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, because we are naturally gifted in certain areas. And that's what I like about the Enneagram too, is once you can find your type, you get to see your natural abilities. You know, like an 8 being bold, that to me is like, I can't do that. But, you know, like each type has their light side, and each type has their dark side that they're not strong at. And it doesn't mean you don't have those strengths. Doesn't mean I don't have boldness in me. It's just that's not my natural tendency. So we can all work on our natural tendencies, using our strengths in our life and working on our weaknesses where there's room for improvement.
I love it. And I know I said this in the other segment, and that's okay. I think this might be a great transition point to wrap up the number 9. But to me, this work is game changing, and I wish they taught it in school, because can you imagine how much more aware we'd be in our family and growing up, how much better we'd be at communicating. And not only that, I'd imagine if we were a little truly more aware of who we are, we might better end up in professions that are suited to us. Because
absolutely,
you know, I know they did career counseling, and I know you probably grow in your personality, but I'd imagine there's jobs just based on my personality that ain't meant for me. It would be the death of me, and I wouldn't be good at it because it's just not my strength. I could do it. Like, we could all do it. But would I be happy?
Yes. Speaking of which, you just bring it, you know, a 9 is also known for persistence because they like routine. They can stay in the same job for years because they just like routine. If you did that for a 7, not happening. You know, like, so typically a 9 will just be in the same job. And that's a strength as well. It's, you know, strength, weakness, good, bad, I don't know. Like, they might fall asleep in that job, you know, like fall asleep to their life and wake up 40 years later and go like, I don't know if I like this job. I didn't even assess. I'm not even aware. Right. But they're the type that would just persist in the same job. So that's a strength of, when, you know, saying what type you are for what role, what career, what.
Totally going into that. And I've kind of picked up this naturally. My personality, I like a lot of change, a lot of variety. put me in one job where I do the same thing all the time. Oh boy, like look out, Tracy's gonna, that's just not me. So I've fortunately always ended up in jobs where I have a lot of different balls in the air, and it helps me thrive. And I always need to be bringing in new exciting things. But then realizing that other people, when I was hiring people, are not necessarily that way. If you want to hire a marketing person, they need to be a multitasker, like variety. Don't hire somebody that just likes one job, right? So the implications and where we can like apply this are so like it's everywhere in life, right? Personal relationships, working with family, finding the right career, raising kids, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah, raising kids. Yes. And even, just going back to what you said, teaching it in schools, and I completely agree. Even if you can't find your type, in school, or, if you're looking through all these different videos and be like, well, I don't know what my type is. Obviously you can come for a typing session, but if you don't want to do that and you're just trying to, learn about the Enneagram, it's awesome to just be open to whatever type. You don't know what type you are, that's okay. Learn about it. Learn that there are other types. There are other ways of seeing the world and living their life.
Why would we want to do that? I'm just joking. I'm being a sassy 8 as we close the episode. Thank you so much, Louise, for sharing. I love getting to know the different personality types in the Enneagram, and it's fantastic that you're a 9. So some of those personal examples were really beneficial too. I'm going to do one last call out, and if people want to do a session with you, that's how I started working with Louise on this and had my football stadium light moment. I did the session and I thought I knew a lot about personality types until I did the Enneagram and got into it. And this really has impacted my life. So if there's people out there, and just so you know, I don't make money on referring this to Louise, it's just a game changer for me. And I got to recommend stuff that I believe in. If somebody would like to do a session or learn more about you and the work you do, how can they do so?
Yeah, you can find us on our website at www.thestressexperts.com, or you can drop us an email at info@thestressexperts.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Louise. It is always so much fun talking to you. And I look forward to the next personality type. What number will it be? Tune in and you will know. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
See ya.